Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso at thewatchbox.com, the purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see here on our channel. It's in the description below, tmosso at thewatchbox.com. Today, we're discussing one of the best received Jaeger-LeCoultre novelties of 2017. This is the Master Geographic Sector Dial, 39 millimeters in stainless steel. It's a combination of a world time and a dual time travel watch in the master case, which is 39 millimeters in diameter by a reasonably svelte 11.9 millimeters thick by 46.7 millimeters lug to lug with a 20 millimeter spacing between the lugs. Throw it on my wrist, 16 centimeters in circumference. It is quite comfortable. I would say this would wear well on a wrist as small as 13.5 centimeters circumference, largely because the lugs are so tightly downturned. We'll do a down the barrel shot so you can really get a sense of how short this watch is across the wrist. Plenty of clearance on both sides, and I'm kind of squeezing it down. You can see from overhead there's clearance on both sides, and then the cuff shot to remind you that you could wear this as a dress watch under a sleeve. Now, taking a quick look at the hardware and the software, as I always like to say, the software here, it's a strap navy blue. We have a large rectangular scale alligator leather with a little bit of bolstering to give it some volume. You can see that there's a sheer cut showing the layers of leather, and then on the underside you can see this is a new JLC factory strap made in France, probably by Camille Fournet, the OEM supplier to JLC. Polished stainless steel pin buckle, and then a case that combines polish and satin finish. This generation of JLC Masters from the 2010s was far more delicate, handsome, graceful than the rather blockish and overtly brutal lug profiles of the 2000s. These are more compact, both in size and in profile, as the lugs taper gracefully with a nice expanding bevel, polish on their top, polish on their bevel, satin finish on the sides, and then a bezel that is shallow with two vertical sections. You can see one outboard, one inboard, with a conical section connecting them. And then the JL branded crowns, of course. 50 meters water resistant, not necessarily a sports watch, but a sporty watch, which is ironic because this specific sector dial design came from a pocket watch in the Jaeger-LeCoultre Heritage Gallery or Factory Museum. We have a number of different elements, as you can see, black and blue printing on the dial, and sector style with the different portions of the dial separated by rings, by shades and gradients, and you can see the tone of silver on the dial changes several times. There's an opaline, which is outboard and then inboard, and then there's a lovely brushed sort of concentric ring of bright metallic that underpins the inner sector with the tri-Arabic numerals as well as the blue inboard printed indices. Note the use of both black and blue printed indices on the dial. Now, it's a hybrid of a world time and it is a hybrid of a dual time. There are two time zones, but then there's also a world time ring where you have your standard and then you have your summertime, and that little appendage attached to certain cities reminds you where summertime and standard time are observed, so you can set them accordingly in alignment as appropriate. Now, the reference rings down there represent the 24 principal time zones of the world, so each reference city is going to represent one of those primary time zones. If you've got one of those 30-minute, 45-minute, or 15-minute offset time zones, you're just going to have to make a mental note because the watch doesn't necessarily recognize those kind of distinctions. But for most traveling, you should be fine. Not going to Caracas, not going to North Korea, you're already ahead of the game. Now, you can see lovely blued hands, skeletonized syringe hands, and a counterweighted lancet-style seconds. Let's talk a little bit about how this scale works. So you can see that I'm able to move it forward or backwards using the crown up at 10 o'clock. But note how the second time zone jumps as I make these changes. If I go from New York to Los Angeles, that reference time zone does all the work for me. Now, it's also nice to have because you can choose whether this is going to be your reference time zone, which I recommend because it comes with a 24-hour sub-register, or you could make your reference time zone the time at center. But I always believe that it's best to make your reference time zone the smaller display so you don't confuse the two. And the nice thing is, if you are tracking, for example, business associates who might be involved in the New York financial markets, or, for example, Tokyo or Hong Kong, you can easily keep track of what time it is there. And you can see that there is a AM/PM day-night indicator adjacent. Now, if you wish to set that time zone independently, if you wish to move that hour around without moving the reference ring or the local time, you can do so using the primary crown. Caliber 939 can be seen through the case back. It goes through the Master 1000 Hours control, which since 1992 has been one of the factory gauntlets, if you wish, that goes beyond the COSC. Yes, precision is important, and the movement should run no worse than -1 + 6 seconds per day, but it also includes water resistance testing, shock resistance, power reserve, and winding efficiency. The Master 1000 hours control is 1,000 hours, not the 2 weeks of a conventional COSC evaluation. Automatic winding, ceramic rotor bearings, unidirectional winding action, 34 joules, free sprung for shock resistance. There is a stop seconds function, and it does include a conventional beat rate of 28,800 vibrations per hour. You can see Côte de Genève mechanically applied, to be sure, but real fired blued screws here. These are kiln oxidized blued screws, not dyed screws. A good looking, technically proficient manufacturer movement inside a handsome, versatile travel time watch. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.